What's up, everyone? Man, what a pleasure to welcome back a familiar face. He's in our old office right there at Lambeau Field at 1265 Lombardi Ave. Milwaukee Journal Sentinel headquarters, PackersNews.com headquarters. The absolute best beat writer doing it. Still going strong. Tom Silverstein. Spoon, it's great to see you, man. What season? What training camp number is this for you?
This would be training camp number 36.
Leroy
So,
Butler. Your Leroy Butler
yeah,
training camp.
yep. 37th season, 36th training camp.
So what has changed most from training camp number 1 to training camp number 36?
No two-a-days. That's the biggest thing. And it still can't believe they did that, for so many years. Two practices 3 times a week, and then two special teams practices in the afternoon. I honest to God don't know how players got through that, because now I was just looking. I keep the amount of time of each practice, and I have it up here, and I'm looking at it, and there hasn't been a practice more than 2 hours and 17 minutes, and most of the practices have been 2 hours or just under 2 hours. So it's a whole nother philosophy on how to do this kind of stuff, and kind of shows that those guys were nuts in the old days.
Yes. I remember the two-a-days when I was an intern out there. It was a different world then in like '07, '08.
Oh,
I'm starting to feel like an
completely.
old curmudgeon.
It was just insane,
Yeah.
and you think about what they do now is everything they did on the field back then, they do in walkthroughs now. They were like 3 walkthroughs during the game. I was looking at their schedule, and I think they do a walkthrough before practice, and then they do one at like 6 o'clock at night,
Hmm.
and then they have the one practice. So,
But is it all at the expense of the substance of the game? I can remember our good friend Bob McGinn writing a column once upon a time that, this would have been 2012, 2013, and he was kind of comparing training camp in Green Bay to maybe Pittsburgh and Baltimore, some other places where they hit a little bit more. Just overall, do you think the quality of the sport has suffered at all when there's just less practice time, less contact? Um, you know the game is better than anybody. You've been covering it as long as anybody.
yeah, I think they've had to adapt because, for one, 17 games, that's recent, but that adds quite a bit to the season. And then the other thing is that these off-season programs are so long, and players start hitting the weight room and training like a month after the season starts, and some even sooner than that. And
Yeah.
so, when they come to camp, they're in great shape. Camp is easy to them, compared to what they've been doing, at least for the guys who really put it, put in the time. I think, I remember Mike Holmgren always saying, and I honestly, he had some of the best teams that I've ever covered. He was more interested in the quality of practice than the physicality,
Hmm.
or, whether he didn't want to have to do plays over again. He wanted it extremely efficient. And I think that says a lot. I think there's a lot of it that's a mental game. And then, the physical part just comes out in games, I think.
It had to have been quite a sight back in the day when some of these guys are showing up day one of training camp, just big old beer guts, just pounding
Oh,
fast food off
I'll
season. It's a
never
different
forget.
time.
Wolf was so mad. I forgot Ron Wolf was so mad. What it have been his first year, second year, they had like about 12 hamstring injuries, and he was just blasted the team for being fat and out of shape. He was so mad. Nobody had ever done that before, and he was irate. I'll never forget that.
How's life, Tom? Man, I haven't talked to you in forever, and then I reach out to you out of the blue asking to come on a podcast. I feel guilty. We haven't even caught up. What's new in your world?
Well, I mean, that's sort of my life is, and all of our lives. It's, it's sort of unfortunate. You sort of give up that social activity and it's one big circular existence because you just kind of go from one season to the next, to the off season, to the next
Yeah.
season. And you're when you're in this job, you're preoccupied with the job, and it doesn't always do well for relationships with other people. So, your work people become your friends, and you just sort of wind up being, uh, I don't know how to describe it other than you're sort of very insular, and that's just
Huh.
the way it works.
I tell you what, though, some of my best memories in this job are those road trips with you and Bob. We could laugh for hours on end about
Yeah,
some of the stories. But man, that was fun. I do miss those. And for those who don't know, I mean, Tom and Bob were mentors of mine from what was it, 2011 to 15 when I left, and man, I treasure those years, those seasons. Learned so much from you, Tom. I mean, you are a pros pro, and
thanks.
as the world changes, as social media changes, so does the way people cover the NFL. And it's just I'm just glad you're still doing it. I think everybody's glad you're still doing it. We need more Tom Silversteins out there.
Well, thanks. Yeah, those weekends now I've spent in the hotel, going to bed at about 9 o'clock. I do not do anything on the road. I used to visit relatives. I used to go out. Now I look forward to them because I get to go to bed early and catch up on sleep. So it changes dramatically as you get older.
To you, what is the number one story at Green Bay Packers training camp 2025?
Um, well, I think the number one story, it always revolves around the quarterback. I think in every training camp, is there any training camp where it doesn't revolve around the quarterback? And with Jordan Love, I don't think it's so much about is he going to be any good or is he that good? I think it's what kind of season he's going to have. In other words, is he got that championship type season there now? I mean, there's no question he's got all the talent, and you can see it in camp. He looks so much better than he did last year. He's moving around. Some of the balls he's thrown have been out of this world, but you still have to be that guy who can put you over the top, put a team over the top, and that's what we need to see. I think the Packers are extremely talented, and it's just a matter of are they too young? Do they have just enough playmakers? You have to have, you got to have four or five really high end players. I mean, really cream of the crop players, I think, to win a Super Bowl. And they maybe have four, and they need like one more guy to really have an incredible season. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's definitely love. I mean, I don't think there's everything else is well, will the receivers do all right? Will their offensive line hold up? Is their pass rush going to be okay? All those things I think are minor compared to Jordan Love.
I mean, I definitely have celebrated Jordan Love to shameless proportions, so a lot of that is music to the ears. But let's face it, last year it was ugly at times, and it's hard to figure out okay how much of it what were the injuries. I mean, with Bob on our pod, we talk about it often. Like he's athletic, he's got that long stride, he can take off, but he never really wanted to, right? He never just kind of would seek out those plays as a runner. I don't know how much of that was health, and if we see a healthy Jordan Love in the Green Bay Packers dream scenario, what does that look like in 2025?
Yeah, he talked a lot about that a lot uh, this week and talked about how his reluctance to run last year was due to the injury. And that's the first time I've heard him really admit that he didn't want to run. that the injury was kept him from running. And really,
Mm,
that's the beauty of Jordan Love. He doesn't give up. He doesn't get sacked very often. And so last year, he only got sacked 14 times, but he didn't. Those times when he wasn't getting sacked, he wasn't making the plays he had made in 23, where he's really good at reading pressure, reading the pocket. I saw one early in camp, and he felt the pressure, stepped up just to the right spot, turned, threw across his body, and hit the 63-yard touchdown. And I remember asking LaFleur about it, and yeah, that was the throw where you go, all right, I think he's healthy now. Now, after that, it's can he get back to manipulating the pocket? Can he take those yards when he needs to? I think in the NFL you got to the quarterbacks have to run. I mean, they have to get with all the two deep coverages that you see now. These guys
mm.
got to take off when they can, and then they have to do it and not get hurt. So that will be a big part of what happened of you know determining the success up here.
I mean, we all saw Lambeau Field roar in approval when they drafted a wide receiver in the first round. I mean, how do you see that pecking order shaping out at wide receiver? I mean, just from afar, I'm not there day to day like you. It seems like they're getting everything they want out of Matthew Golden in this setting, training camp, and then maybe he's got the speed and the ceiling to be that number one that they've been looking for. They don't want to talk about, right? Don't can't talk about
Yeah.
it. But let's face it, you want a dude that you're going to go to with everything on the line. I don't know. How do you see that all shaking out, Tom?
Well, you sort of get the sense that he can be special. He definitely has the hands. You see it. You saw it today. He made just snared a ball that probably shouldn't have been caught and pulled it down. He catches everything with his hands, two handed. I think he's had maybe one drop the entire camp. But here's my question or my bucket of water to throw on everybody is can he stay healthy over the course of the season? The Packers had a philosophy of drafting big wide receivers for a reason because come November and December and the weather stinks and you need to run the ball, the track slows down and all of a sudden your speed guys aren't the
Hmm.
same at home. And they sort of experienced this with Jaden Reed last year. He just got beat up. And at the end of the year, he wasn't the same player he was early. Early on, he was killing it. And remember that game in Philadelphia? It was a breakout game for him, and he had a good year, but he just kind of wore down. And that's the part where you wonder whether he's a pretty slight guy. He's not a big guy. He can run away from people. He definitely has that speed. I think a guy that to keep an eye on is Savion Williams.
Hmm.
If he can hold on to the ball, and he has past couple of days, he's a big man with really good after the catch ability, and I think LaFleur is really really interested in making him Debo Samuel. Making him one of these guys who can line up in the backfield, who can get the ball on a toss, he's just a big man and he runs, a 4.48. So they're really, really excited about him. So I want to see what Golden does in the early going and he may do really well. But then what happens later? As the
Hmm.
season goes on, can he stay healthy? And then, does Savion Williams kind of um, move into a position of prominence there?
Man, that's a great take. I haven't really thought about that. As you're kind of explaining that all, I'm trying to think of like just pure point A to point B speed guys that Green Bay's had in the past that have excelled. I mean, Bill Schrader, way back in the day, he didn't
Ah,
last that long. Just trying to think of some deeper cuts. Corey Bradford. You're right. You got to be big, have big hands. It's different in
the small,
Wisconsin
the
in
smallest
winter.
guy, yeah, they ever really went with was Greg Jennings, and I wouldn't call him small. I mean,
Right.
he wasn't Jordy Nelson size or James Jones size. Um, Even Donald Driver wasn't the biggest guy, but he was played big. And Greg Jennings played big too. I mean, he was such a good route runner and just a good football player that injury wasn't a he didn't wear down. And plus they had a huge crew of really quality wide receivers, and so he
Hmm.
didn't have to catch 112 balls. You know, um, it, I am interested to see how it all kind of plays out in terms of moving the ball around. I, I do think that their number one receiver is going to be their tight end. I think he will be the guy who winds up with the most catches, Tucker Kraft. He's kind of um, their most reliable guy, and I think you'll see him catch quite a few balls. Maybe Romeo Dobbs winds up with the most just because he's experienced and they throw a lot of short stuff to him. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kraft winds up at least in the top two.
Wow. So what really separates Tucker Kraft when you see him day to day in training camp? Uh, right. It's been tough for Green Bay to find a tight end really since back to our guy J Mike and the neck
Yeah,
injury. They
yeah.
haven't had a weapon at
No,
that position.
no. He's a just a football player. Uh he's really good inline pass receiver. He's not one of these slot guys. He's not Travis Kelsey. He's more George Kittle than Travis Kelsey. I mean, he's gonna have his hand down a lot, and he's gonna block. He's not a great blocker, but he'll give you everything he's got. But he's really slippery off the line of scrimmage, and they love to run bootlegs and things. And he's really good after the catch. So I think he's kind of a nice security blanket for Love, but he's got some downfield ability. The other guy that they really, when they drafted Kraft and Musgrave, Luke Musgrave, in 3 years ago, they thought Musgrave was going to be the better of the
Hmm.
two, but Kraft is just a complete guy. And now um, Musgrave he's had a lot of injuries and he's looked good in camp this year. If they can get both of them going, uh, then they don't have to worry so much about the wide receivers. But Kraft, hands down, I mean, it's hard to take him off the field.
Just when you look at the roster holistically, 1 through 53, it seems like Green Bay has a lot of, I don't know, like C plus to A minus kind of players. They've kind of been in this place of getting to the playoffs, running into that brick wall. And I mean, you look at the Super Bowl, the Eagles have A plus studs on both sides of the ball, like legit playmakers. That's what it takes to get to the
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl and win it all.
Yep.
Green Bay didn't do anything crazy. They're never really going to do anything crazy in free agency. You're not going to see this outlandish trade for a disgruntled superstar on another team, even though many of the listeners of this podcast would love that. And we'd heard from them inside that chat. Man, I miss those chats after games. Those were fun. You could literally stay in that press box until 4 a.m. answering questions on the chat after a playoff loss. But to
Yep.
you, Tom, like, do they have those A to A plus level players potentially on the roster that it takes to win a Super Bowl? Because that's always the goal out there.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. They have. I would say Josh Jacobs is right in that borderline. Um, Xavier McKinney is definitely at the top. I mean, he's a first team All Pro, so I guess you have to put him in there.
Bob
Um,
doesn't like his tackling. He's not a fan of his tackling.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think it's tackle. Well, I have to go back and look at my stats.
We got to get
I
Bob
don't
on here.
remember him
We got
missing
to
a
get some
lot.
arguments going.
But his coverage, I mean, his deep coverage is outstanding, and he brings just a lot of smarts to the game. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Love needs to be their elite
Yeah.
guy. Um, Don Gary is it, I don't put him in the top pass rushing guys in the NFL. I was um, really surprised when he made the Pro Bowl. Now, the reason I was surprised, Pro Bowl doesn't mean squat, but he wasn't nowhere near the uh, fan voting. Like he wasn't even mentioned in the fan voting. So to make it, he had to get a ton of votes from coaches and players, and so that kind of tells you that there is some respect for how he plays. Um, he's borderline. He's one of those guys. I don't know the guy who has A+ potential is Edgerrin Cooper, their linebacker. If he can really put it all together, he could change their defense quite a bit. But I agree. I don't think there's A++ talent all over that roster. I think if they win it, if they're there, I I don't know. They're going to have like a complete defense, offense, and special teams to win it.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to rely on a really, really good defense or a really, really good offense.
I mean, you just nailed it. Jordan Love. I mean, you're paying him 55 mil. That's why to elevate. He's got to elevate those
Yeah.
around him. Now, whatever's
Uh,
going on health wise.
Absolutely. That's the quarterback is everything, and he can do that. It's whether he can do it in the clutch. You got to be able to do it in the biggest of games. He has to be able to go into Detroit and play the game of his life. Throw for 4 touchdowns and 367 yards, and just be the difference.
Hmm.
He has to be able to do that against Philadelphia here. They've got a lot of big games like that, and it'll be a really good test for him to see how that goes.
So, for better or for worse, who has surprised you most at Packers training camp?
Um, it's funny because um, there hasn't been a lot of guys who just like blown you away or played so well that they've taken positions away because so many guys they have so many returning starters and key backups that it's kind of all just fallen in line and there hasn't been anything that's just been off the charts great. I think Cooper continues to show that he could be a really good player. Um, I I still think their left tackle position's a little bit weak, and that's been a bit of a surprise. I thought Jordan Morgan, their 2024 first round pick, would be better than he is, and he
Hmm.
hasn't been that great so far. He's been getting a lot of snaps at left tackle. I think the move of Elton Jenkins has been solid. Um, I there is you haven't seen like this big jump from Lucas Van Ness. He looks better and he looks like the one-on-one drills and yeah, but who cares? Let's see it in a game. Let's see how that goes in a game. You kind of thought, well, is it just going to click in for him and then he dominate? And I haven't seen that yet. Um, yeah, really just they they are they are the sum of their parts. They're
Hmm.
they're just not really the kind of team where one guy other than the quarterback I think is going to lift them, and so that's going to be interesting. Can a team like that win? Detroit is a pretty good example of that. I mean, they have a really good offensive line. Their quarterback isn't off the charts great. They don't have a running back. They have a two good running backs. They have, one really good receiver, but do they have, complete absolute stars other than Hutchinson? And but they managed to win and they managed to beat people up, and they couldn't get past Washington, but they're still a really, really good team, and I wouldn't put them past going to the Super Bowl. So I don't know if you absolutely have to have those guys. That's the question. That's it's a great question to ask, is do you have to have five blue chips, whatever they are, to do that, to win?
Yeah, and there was a coach for an NFC team that got their brains beaten by the Buffalo Bills last year. Don't want to give too much detail away there, but I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, and I thought he would just be gushing about the Bills roster, and he's like, it was just Josh Allen. We were terrified of Josh Allen. He's like, nobody else on their roster scared us as we're game planning for the Bills. He's like rattling off players, and I mean, maybe that's an example. I think the Bills have a solid roster. Brandon Beane has hit on his mid round picks, not too dissimilar from Ron Wolf, right? Ron Wolf wasn't nailing first round picks, but he was really good in the middle rounds. Could make a smart trade here and there. Anyways, maybe I don't know. Maybe the Bills are an example for the Packers where the roster's really solid, and then Josh Allen just played out of his mind, wins MVP. All roads lead us back to Jordan Love. They always do.
Yeah, and is that even enough?
Maybe not.
Patrick Mahomes is just an amazing quarterback, but you can't take away what their defense has meant to them. It's just a perfect compliment to him. There's only one Patrick Mahomes in the NFL, and Josh Allen's probably the closest to that, but it just hasn't been enough. So what does it take? With Philadelphia, they're just loaded. I mean, they have stars everywhere, and I don't know that there's a roster as good as that anywhere else in the NFL. I guess we'll find out this year. But I don't know. I just don't know if anybody other than Philadelphia has that kind of talent. So maybe my point is that maybe this is a year where the most complete team wins it, and or the team with just the quarterback carrying them on its back, is the team that wins it.
Does Matt LaFleur feel added pressure? He's been banging at that door for a while, and he seems to get a little pissed off when you guys ask him about quote unquote big games. Uh, I don't know. Like,
it
does he feel any added pressure into this season?
it's for here, there's not pressure like he's going to lose his job.
Right.
That's just not really in the cards. They have a new president now, but that's not going to be his move. And you can't fire a guy who keeps going to the playoffs every year. Eventually, you're thinking, okay, he's going to take them somewhere. But yeah, heck yeah, there's pressure. I think it kills them that the seasons keep ending like this, and that weighs on you, and at some point, you keep making changes and doing as much as you can to alter what you've been doing and looking over what you're doing. Um, I think he's feeling a ton of pressure for sure. Again, I don't think it's pressure to lose his job. I think it's pride kind of
Yeah.
thing. I gotta win. I've got to win a Super Bowl. The last couple of coaches have won Super Bowls. Well, two out of the last four coaches have won Super Bowls, and he hasn't been to one. So
There's a healthy pressure in Wisconsin. Like just being on that beat, it was different. Now that I can kind of parachute into different markets, you can kind of compare and contrast. I don't know how you put your finger on it, just what the fans, those people filling the stadium, expect out of your team. And it was there. I mean, I joined that beat after Green Bay won the Super Bowl and after those playoff defeats that came after the win there in North Texas. It was palpable and it's encouraging in a way. I don't know. Like I like the fact that the fans kind of apply that pressure. Like, no, we need it, we want it, bring it. This window, we don't know how long it's going to be open. So I don't know how you kind of quantify it, but that was well put, Tom. We should probably let you get back to writing
Uh,
too. I've been keeping you a little
no,
long here.
you can give me a little longer. I was able to finish, but I think the pressure here is strong. But as you know, um, people heal really fast here because uh, they're so into their team. And um, has has there been somebody that they just wanted to fire so badly? I guess at the end they thought McCarthy should be fired. But
Capers. Capers was he
yeah,
was in the crosshairs.
usually it's a coordinator. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think LaFleur's put together a pretty good staff. I think Jeff Halfley is he could be the difference for him. I think he's going to be a head coach probably if they have a really good year. He'll be a head coach next year. Um, so they got to get the most. I mean, I think this is a year they got to strike. I really feel that way. Uh, Josh Jacobs is in his prime. If they can get Christian Watson back and just they could get him back at mid-season, and then that could be the push to, if he could stay healthy, that could be the push over the top. They're really good at a lot of positions, but it can't last forever, and so that window it eventually closes. And so, even though they're probably going to be the youngest team in the NFL again, they you just can't count
Hmm.
on it being the same every year. And so I really think this is a year they gotta capture it.
Boy, perfectly put, Tom. Thanks so much, man. What can we check out at PackersNews.com, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel that you have posted?
Yeah, I've been trying to do some more unusual stories before they start hitting games and talking about depth charts and stuff. Although part of the beauty of this camp is that there isn't much to write about depth charts. The starting lineups are pretty much intact. There's a couple of positions up for grabs. I think it's the things to watch are of course Golden and Savion Williams. Another one I wrote about this week was uh, Isaiah Simmons this year, and they've got him and Savion Williams working as gunners on the punt team. Two of two big, huge guys who can run. It's almost like I don't know if you were here then, but Alan Barber is an offensive lineman in college. He got used as a gunner because he was such a good athlete.
Yeah.
And it's really remarkable to watch them. I don't know if they're going to be the gunners, but that's something worth watching. Bo Melton making the transition from wide receiver to corner. I think he's actually going to make the team, mostly
Oh,
because of his special teams, but he's looked pretty decent. And, you know, whether they can get what they need out of their front four, that's going to be huge. Kenny Clark is back at nose tackle. He was playing out of position for 2 years because they had TJ Slayton, who was a big old dude to play over the center. But now Kenny Clark's at the position he's at, and I think that's going to help them. I think that's where he should be. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff. It's pretty much a day to day, and they get to play the vaunted Jets on Saturday. It's both teams are going to play their starters, I think, which is going to be probably the most unusual preseason game I've seen around here since the turf melted at the Hall of Fame game. Like 6 years ago or however long that was.
careful now. It's exhibition. Remember? Not preseason.
Oh yeah,
Exhibition.
yeah. Bob's thing. I could see that you're still under his spell, aren't you?
No, I've definitely let a preseason or two slip. That is for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, be careful.
But man, I got to get my ass back out there to Wisconsin, and we got to get together for a beer. It's been too long, Tom.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind being out there on your deck. That looks pretty
Yeah,
good.
come on out. Well, you
Yeah.
better come out within the next 3 weeks because we're moving down to the southern tier, building a house. So that's
Oh,
why we moved the
really?
studio to the deck. The upstairs office we're shutting things down, making the move.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's been a fun time
Okay. Well, that's a tough thing to do in the middle of a season. Good luck with that.
with a newborn too, right? Why not? Let's bring it all
Y-
on.
Yeah, why not? You're good at multitasking,
I
unlike me.
multitask. Whether or not I'm good at it is
Yeah.
for everybody else to determine. But Tom, thanks so
Yeah.
much, man. This was awesome.
Hey, anytime, Tyler. You know that.